Bibliophiles of the internet, my name's Adriana, and today I'm here to recommend some short little queer books. I was thinking about this because the Queer Lit Readathon's first ever Queer Weekend is coming up on March 28th and 29th, and I figured if you're looking to maximize your time for that weekend, or for any short-term readathon for that matter, then you might just be looking for some queer books that are 200 pages or less. My first recommendation is the single issues of BB Free by Gabby Rivera, illustrated by Royal Dunlap. This is a cute little Own Voices comic about a fat queer Latinx character named BB Free who lives in this post-apocalyptic America where this mysterious plague has pretty much wiped out the rich. She lives in this remote swamp community where everyone knows everyone and everyone shares whatever they have, but she really wants to work on developing her underground radio show and broadening the reach of her audience. It's very much about finding where you belong when the world is against you, and it's definitely a big middle finger to being the quote-unquote good girl who just does whatever she's told and never crosses any lines. BB definitely explores those gender feels as well, because she sometimes sees herself one way and then she aligns a different way, and she's definitely questioning those boundaries and those aspects of herself. I've read a couple of issues so far, and I think it's pretty great. Next up is The Sorcerer of the Will Deeps by Kai Ashante Wilson. This is a challenging but beautifully intricate queer SFF novella about this earthbound demigod named Damane, and he's taken up residence in this band of travelers led by the captain, who is incredibly striking and charismatic. Their company is crossing from the northern oasis to the southern kingdom, but the way through is being stalked by a murderous necromantic creature, which means they have to stay constantly vigilant if they want to make it through this journey alive. What I remember most about this story is the richness and complexity of language and the way it's used to flesh out this world and these characters. The imagery in this story is reminiscent of the Song of Achilles, and listening to Damane describe the captain is like someone who's never been outside trying to describe the face of the sun, and it definitely puts me deep in my feels. I think the story is very much about Damane having to confront his divinity and the powerful parts of himself that he's feared and denied for so long, and it's about his tireless journey to save the man he loves. On a similar note, I definitely have to mention the Surrett series by J.Y. Neon Yang. J.Y. Neon Yang is a queer non-binary Singaporean author, and these are their groundbreaking silk punk novellas about these two twins, Makoya and Akeha, who both have prophetic gifts. There is a power struggle between machinists and tensors, basically between technology and magic, and one of these twins will eventually find themselves as part of the rebellion while the other does not. The world of the Surrett series is amazing because children are not actually assigned a gender at birth. Wild idea, I know, and it's really cool to see this world where the historical and futuristic coexist. There's a blend of magic and science, action and political intrigue, and there's so much mystery and depth to each of these novellas, and I just remember being so delighted by each new detail that unfolds. I would be remiss if I didn't recommend the absolute masterpiece that is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal Emotar and Max Gladstone. This is a queer sci-fi novella about two time-traveling spies who are on opposite sides of the Time War and how they begin to exchange correspondence and develop an illicit romance. It's really compelling because initially they leave behind these messages as a way to taunt or trap the other person, but then they slowly come to realize that this is the only person in the universe who can possibly understand them the most. There's obviously extremely high stakes in the story because these two characters are agents for two superpowers in the Time War, and the stability of time itself is on the line, and it's very much about how far they will go to protect this relationship. I urge you to pick up this story if only to experience the absolute height of romantic language and imagery, because it is a deeply emotional reading experience. I'm not going to go down the Tor.com rabbit hole anymore. You should obviously check them out if you're looking for some awesome short queer content. Next up, I want to recommend Go For It Nakamura by Sion Dae. This is a hilarious slice-of-life queer one-shot manga about resident queer disaster Nakamura, who is hopelessly in love with his classmate Hirose. The only problem is they haven't actually properly met. Nakamura has all these elaborate daydreams about how he and Hirose would be such great friends, but every time he tries to swoop in and be suave, he is thwarted by his own awkwardness. This is such a funny and endearing story about how the perfect moment doesn't exist. Being ourselves and connecting with people genuinely is what actually makes a difference. But it's also incredibly real because as a young queer Japanese person, Nakamura doesn't have a template for what queerness looks like in real life, and he's just stumbling through it and trying to make sense of all these emotions as he goes. It's definitely a really sweet story, and I wish more people would read it. Another queer manga I need everyone to read is Given by Kizu Natsuki. This is a queer music manga about this high schooler named Unoyama who is a prolific guitarist and member of the basketball club, but he doesn't really feel any kind of passion for anything in his life. One afternoon, he's going to his secret napping spot during lunch, and he finds this strange, sad-looking boy named Mafuyu cradling this guitar with broken strings. Onoyama helps him fix his guitar, only to find out that Mafuyu has never played a note in his life, but he is magnetically drawn to music. So Onoyama reluctantly finds himself becoming Mafuyu's musical mentor, and they end up in a band together once Mafuyu starts opening up and actually composing these incredible songs. I can't even talk about Given without being extremely emotional, because as an anime and a manga, it is an unprecedented gift. It's so soft and emotional and pure, and to see what these two characters coax out of each other is such a joy. They both awaken something deeply personal in each other. They push each other past their artistic limits, and they just light a fire under each other in so many ways. The musical elements in Given are so incredible in both the manga and the anime, and I think the series just truly celebrates how music is a powerful mode of expression and catharsis. Again, queer manga is another rabbit hole I'm not going to go down any further. Y'all know I highly recommend the Kaze-san Ann series and Our Dreams at Dusk series with Everything I Am. There's also Blue Flag and Our Dinner Table and Bloom Into You, among so many more queer manga series. Penultimately, I would like to recommend Coffee Boy by Austin Chance. You know I could not make this list without Austin Chance. This is an Own Voices queer romance novella about Kieran, who's offered an internship at a political campaign right after college, and the downside is that as a trans man, he's trying to figure out how to navigate this workplace. There's also the soul-sucking campaign strategist Seth, who Kieran quickly learns has a big gay crush on their painfully straight boss. But when Seth proves to be as respectful, kind, and supportive as he is straight-laced, Kieran starts developing his own hopeless, awkward crush. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Austin Chant is really out here writing trans characters getting the love and romance they deserve, and that, my friends, is the ultimate cosmic gift. What's really great about this story is that Seth is a cis queer man who considers himself to be a trans ally, and he has a lot to work on when it comes to listening to what trans people need and how he can best use his privilege to make a safer workplace. There's definitely mutual respect and trust between these two characters, and I really enjoy the soft intimacy building between them, and I also love how this story celebrates trans desire and sexuality in so many awesome ways. And lastly for today, I gotta talk about Once Ghosted, Twice Shy by Alyssa Cole. This is Own Voices for the Black Rep, and it's a queer FF romance between Lakotsi and Fabiola, who swiped right on each other via this dating app, only to have their heated romance ultimately end in heartbreak. But now that Lakotsi is back in New York, she runs into Fabiola again, and she finds herself wondering why she let this creative, magnetic, passionate woman slip away in the first place. I love this novella because it's about queer, brown love and second chance romance. Not only does this story have some really spicy one-liners that are delivered with such earnestness and intent, but it really explores the different ways people let their fears hold them back. For these two characters, timing is everything, and when they initially started their relationship, they were both going through some really difficult things, and they began discarding anything in their lives that wouldn't allow them to survive and stay afloat. They didn't let each other all the way in, and they didn't share their hardships, and they're learning that they have to be unafraid with each other if they want this relationship to work. Alyssa Cole will never let you down when it comes to romance, and this delightful queer novella is no different. So there you have it. Those are a bunch of awesome queer short books that you can read over the queer weekend or just anytime you feel like reading good queer books, which should be always. Of course, these were just the first titles that came to mind, and I would love to hear any recommendations for short queer books that you may have down below in the comments. But that's everything I had to recommend today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you on the flip side of the page.